Hey everyone, welcome back to Stoma Dad. If you've ever had one of those moments where your life changed overnight, where things just didn't go the way you planned, well, this is probably the episode for you. Today we're talking about something I didn't even have a name for when I was going through it, and that's post-traumatic growth. It's not just getting through something, but what happens after, how you rebuild, how you adjust, and how you move forward. I'm joined today by a life and career coach who works directly with people navigating change, trauma, and resilience. We're going to keep this real because that's what we do here. So, I'd love to introduce to you my friend Tony. Tony, can you tell us your name, how you got into this, and a little bit of background?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ray, for inviting me, and thanks for creating the space for this conversation. I'm Tony Smith. I'm an Air Force veteran, and as Ray said, I'm a life and career transition coach. And I work with people who are navigating moments in life when things didn't go according to plan. Like things like surgery, career disruptions, life disruptions, major identity shifts, or intentional changes. And honestly, I got into this work because I've lived it. I've had moments in my life where everything changed overnight, and I had to figure out how not just survive it, but how to redefine and rebuild my life in a way that still had meaning. And what I realized is that now that's something I want to share with others and just remind people that resilience isn't just about pushing through. It's about learning how to adapt and reinterpret and rebuild in a way that aligns with who you are now and not just who you were before the experience happened. So it's something I'm very passionate about and paying that forward to help others as well.
Awesome. So, hey, let's go ahead and let's get this thing rolling. So for someone who's hearing this for the first time, what is post-traumatic growth in real terms, and how is that different from just getting through something?
Well, a lot of the stuff that I do is focused on resilience, and people look at many definitions of resilience as bouncing back. And I think post-traumatic growth, as you and I have talked before, it can best be defined as bouncing forward, not just bouncing back. Now, post-traumatic growth is what happens after survival. You have a lot of people think the goal is to get back to normal, but growth doesn't come from going backwards. It comes from building forward from where you are now after the trauma. And it's basically occurs when someone's saying, this is not what I wanted or expected in my life, and I'm not the same person anymore, but how can I use that to build forward?
Awesome. Yeah, that's one of the things that that I've noticed also. I love how you said it's not bouncing back, but bouncing forward. I mean, that's really a good way to look at this. So, hey, let's talk a little bit about the reality of trauma. All right. One thing I've experienced, I know a lot of people in this community feel, is that trauma doesn't always look the way people expect it to look. So what does trauma actually look like for someone going through major life changes or surgery, illnesses, diagnosis? And is it normal to feel grateful to be alive and also angry at the same time?
Those are all very good questions. I'm really glad you asked that because trauma is often misunderstood. It's not just the event itself, it's your internal experience of the event.
Yeah.
And that may show up, if someone's going through surgery or illness or diagnosis, trauma can look like a loss of control, or loss of identity. We've talked about that before. Fear about the future. What does this look like now for me going forward? And feeling disconnected from your own body. And just this
Right
is
to
the
that.
life I had planned, right?
Right.
And your last question. Here's what people don't talk about enough. You can be grateful to be alive, and at the same time grieving what you lost. That's not a contradiction. That's just being human.
Yeah. That happened to me too. When I went in for surgery, I was grateful to be alive, because it was life-saving,
Yeah.
but I was also angry that I had to live my life this way now. And I was also really depressed. And, bouncing back on something like that or bouncing forward, like you're saying, is something that took place with me, and it took place organically, It brings us right into that turning point segment of this. I mean, for myself, it was a gradual turn that was organic. I didn't even know it was happening until my therapist said, you're like the poster child for post-traumatic growth. I had no idea what the hell that thing even was. Excuse me, guys. What the heck that thing even was. So, was there a usual moment where things start to shift for people, or is it gradual? And how does somebody move from, why is this happening to me, to, okay, what now?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And for some people, there may be a moment, but for most of us, it's gradual. It's a series of small decisions that happen there, and it's when you stop asking why did this happen to me and start asking who or what do I want to become or want to be now. And that shift from that why to what is where that growth begins, right?
That's
And,
brilliant.
and it can be subtle. It could look like, just getting out of bed on a hard day, or, asking somebody for help, reaching out, attending a podcast like this, right? That, just learning from others can be part of that growth. Now, being honest about how you feel in any given day or any moment in the day, and being honest with yourself and just taking one small step towards something that matters most to you. That's the beginning of the rebuilding, how you're shifting it.
That's brilliant,
Yeah.
That's something that I found with myself, and that's really what happened with Stoma, Dad. I've every day there's a new challenge. And within that challenge, you got to decide, are you going to accept the challenge or are you going to try to avoid that challenge?
Mhm.
And, like most people say, hitting it head on is the way to do it, and well, let's move into identity and the body changes. This was a big one for the audience. I mean, as you know, people with ostomies, I mean, we go through a lot of issues, as far as physically, even mentally. I mean, our body changes and stuff. And this is when you really feel like your identity is changing with that. So, how do people start to rebuild that sense of self again? I mean, it took me a while to figure out, who Ray was. And, it really, it really took a lot for me to look inside
Mhm.
and come back with, maybe I'm not myself anymore. Maybe I'm somebody else. And what would you say to someone who feels like they've just lost who they used to be?
Yeah, that's like you said, that's one of the biggest challenges, right? And a lot of times people ask, how do I get back to who I was?
Yeah.
And honestly, the truth is you don't.
Yeah.
And that's not a loss. That's invitation, right? Because instead of going back, the work becomes who am I now and who do I want to become, right? And the process starts with small identity shifts, by saying like I am someone who can handle difficult things, hard
Yeah.
things. Now
Yeah.
I'm someone who adapts to situations, and I'm someone who's still capable of building a meaningful life. When in positive psychology, we talk about identity reconstruction, and it's powerful because your identity drives your actions. And so as your identity evolves, your life will follow, right? But it really comes up to those small actions that you can take and just small steps each day. And for me, I use this analogy where like my plants, I'm not really good with plants at all. My plants, sometimes I forget to water them. They're kind of drooping, falling down. I give them a drink of water and they come back to life. They're reaching up and reaching for the sunlight. And I think sometimes we know we need water as humans, but sometimes what we need most is a drink of water from our own story. And what that means to me
I
is
like that.
we have moments in our past where we've overcome challenging times, where we've been adaptive, we have been resilient, and possibly even had post traumatic growth in previous situations in our lives. And looking back on those stories, the moments where we have been able to adapt and reminding ourselves again, I'm someone who's going to handle hard things. Here's an example from my past.
All
I'm
right.
someone who can be adaptive, and it can be a simple, small story. It doesn't have to be a major trauma you overcame. It could be a small story, but that story becomes your drink of water, your inspiration to inspire you now and give you proof that you can overcome anything. You can be, overcome this challenge and make those changes and adapt. Now, when we talk about you're not the same person, you're not physically the same person, and even emotionally, because psychologically, because you've gone through this trauma, you've changed, but you are the same person with the core values. right?
Yeah.
You are the same person who have these same lived experiences that could inspire you. And, reconnecting with those core values, going back and looking at those stories where you have been adaptive and resilient before and overcame difficult things, those become inspirations to you now in the current moment as you're navigating this change.
That's absolutely right. And that's so brilliant that you said, taking a drink of water from your own story. You know, it's again, reflecting back to my story and my experience, I found myself finding myself and realizing that the person I thought I was all along really wasn't who I am. And I did that by revisiting everything. And I think we go through life trying to please people or trying to be participant in some way in somebody's life or journey, and we get lost in that stuff and we lose ourselves. And if I'm going to take a negative to a positive, this kind of was a reset button for me.
Yeah.
I think it regrounded me. So, let's bring this down to like real life stuff and some practical steps. So if someone's in this early process, maybe fresh out of surgery or still adjusting, what are some small realistic steps they can take? And what does resilience actually look like day to day?
Excellent question. And I'll start with this. There's two things that I think really help people in this journey. And the first is giving yourself permission to not be okay right away. Right. And growth doesn't come from forced positivity. It comes from being realistic and facing what the current situation is. So your journey is different. Your timeline is different. And don't do social comparison to others who in their journey, and just being, go from day to day, just being realistic and being okay that today's not okay, or this timeline's a little slower
Yeah.
than I expected, right? I think giving yourself permission to not be okay right away is one of the main things. The second thing is sense of agency and control. Even in situations we didn't choose with these life traumatic events, there's still choices that you can make. There's still choices that are available to you. And those help you reconnect and even in small ways and unlock that momentum you were trying to get for yourself.
Yeah.
Now, in addition to that, I would say like three things. One, the first is I call it the and practice, A-N-D. So whenever you notice a difficult emotion coming up, add the word and to it. So, for example, this is a hard situation, and
Yeah.
I'm still here. You know,
Yeah.
I'm frustrated or angry right now, but I'm still making progress. Right? What that does is you're acknowledging the difficult emotion. It has value. Your negative or difficult emotions have value, but you're acknowledging it. And that gives you this cognitive break to choose how you want to respond to it in a more positive way instead of giving into the negativity, right?
Yeah.
And adding the word and to that gives you more sense of agency and control. Yes, this is a difficult situation. I'm acknowledging it. I'm feeling frustrated right now, and I'm still making progress towards my goals, and I'm still able to get up and ask for help or do these small tasks that matter to me each day. That's kind of the first thing. So the and practice. The next piece is micro wins. I think a lot of times we're still measuring ourselves by our previous capacity. So shrink that win, redefine and reframe that win. Getting out of bed could be a win on some days.
Yeah.
And taking a walk can be a win some days. Having an honest conversation with your loved ones, with friends, with coworkers can be a
Right.
win.
Yeah.
Getting back in the pool, get back in the water can be a win. They don't have to be those big leaps. It can be a small, consistent proof of the steps, and that really makes a huge difference for you.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that.
the third and final one is the meaning check, right? Instead of asking, what did I accomplish today? Ask at the end of the day, what mattered to me today? Not
Interesting.
what did I accomplish, but what really mattered. That question helps to reconnect you with your sense of purpose in difficult seasons in life. So again, the and, adding the and to the difficult emotion. I'm frustrated and I'm still making progress. Shrinking that win, getting out of bed, getting in the pool, going for a walk, those are all equal wins. And then the meaning check, what mattered to me today. Those really together can help continue setting the stage for momentum in this journey.
That is actually brilliant. The and statement, it reminds me of when you're ad-libbing, and you're on stage
Yeah.
or something, right? It's always like this and that, right? So the conversation never ends, and really believe in these moments, whether you're doing your micro wins or the and statements, it's all about moving forward. And there I go, using the and again. I think that's absolutely brilliant and a great takeaway. So, let's talk a little bit about emotional truth. I think this is really, really important to say out loud. Is it okay not to feel positive? And what do you say to someone who just feels stuck or like they're just not making progress that they think they should be making?
I think it's again, it's shrinking those wins. Not defining your wins by your previous capacity. So that is setting yourself up for failure. So like, how do you shrink the win and define the win?
Hmm.
It's not doing social comparison. You're competing for your only with yourself. Your journey and your timeline is different from everybody else's.
Yeah.
And and there can be days where just, a win is, like I said, just getting out of bed. A win is I didn't give in to this particular negative emotion. I chose to respond positively in a different way to this negative emotion, right? And those moments are wins, and it's not tomorrow. Maybe have a better day, and you're out and you're going for a walk. You're going into the
Yeah.
pool again. You're comfortable, but then you have a setback, and that's okay. That's life. This is your journey, and giving yourself grace and respecting that and just and I always like for me it's progress not perfection. A lot of
Yeah.
times I force myself or I kind of struggle with wanting to be perfect at something that even stops me from starting it,
Yeah.
right? And maybe my progress is I just went out and I walked outside and just sat outside in the sunlight. I didn't go for a long walk, but tomorrow maybe I go for a long walk. Neither is a loss. Both are wins, and
Right.
and each day is going to be different. So I think it's giving yourself grace, redefining those wins, shrinking those wins, not competing with anybody else, just acknowledging this is your own journey you're on, and again at the end of the day, what mattered to me
Yeah.
today? What did I do today that mattered most? Taking that small step towards those things that are most important to you.
Yeah. I remember my journey with those small steps. My mother turned 80 and we threw a big party down in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And I remember all my family, my cousins, everybody were all there. This is the first time they seen me after the surgery. Heck, it's the first time they seen me in years. And I remember getting the call from them saying, "Hey, we're all heading down to the pool. You ought to come down and hang out with us." And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not there yet to take my shirt off. I'm not there yet to expose my stoma, even though it's bagged and, even I might even have a belt around it. Um, but the small step to me was going down there
Mhm.
with my shirt on and my shirt and my shorts on and just laying out with them and just being part of that. And to me, that was that little minor step. And I also agree with you 100%. Oh my God. In the age of social media, social comparison is so easy for us anymore. It's like, look at this person over there. She's doing that, or he's doing this, and he's got a stoma and he's water skiing, or she's over there, laying out on the beach. And we have to remember everybody's journey is different. And those social comparisons are really hard. So, what do you think about those support systems? I mean, how important is support in all of this? And what do loved ones often get wrong when they mean well?
You know, I think that one of the best things that I talk about for me for social support in career coaching and life coaching and transitions is I use the phrase take care of your network takes care of you, right? Your network could be your professional network, your social network, your health network, others. And it's all about and as a good leader, you don't do everything on your team, right? As a good leader, you bring people on who have certain skill sets that complement the team, are able to collectively together to accomplish the mission, right? As a leader, you're not doing everything yourself.
Yeah.
The same thing when you think about your journey after a traumatic situation in from a health perspective. Why try to do this all by yourself? You have a team of people, a community to help support you, to help educate you, and to share best practices or lessons learned with you. One of my coaching colleagues uses a phrase sometimes: success leaves clues, right? So why try to figure it out all on your own if you got a community like Stomadad or other groups that in communities where you can connect with other people who have similar experiences that can share, here's how I dealt with returning
Yeah.
back to the
Yeah.
workplace, right? Why try to figure it out on your own when you have a community that can help support you and you don't have to go this journey alone. So support is hugely important and helpful. And I think it's a sign of strength and a sign of good leadership and leadership in your own life, right? We talk about leadership in your corporate and your career. Think about you're the leader of your own life. You're the author
Right.
of your own life, and to get support and build a team that supports you is being the good leader for your own life. And I think that's why it's just really critical. The thing with family, I think what they get wrong a lot of times, and I get this wrong, is because this is my personality, is we want to fix things. We want to have answers to say,
For the
oh, you should do
fixers.
this, that, and the other, or we want to immediately fix it or take away the negative emotion or the pain in some way. And sometimes that could come across as dishonoring or dismissing the real lived experience
Hmm.
and challenges the person's experiencing. So you don't have to have an answer when someone shares something with you. Just hold that space with them.
Yeah.
If you've been through it or you know resources like Stoma Dad, you can say, here's a resource to check out. Those are all things that are fine. But don't dismiss the experience or the negative or the challenges they're having or try to rush them into getting to a certain level. It's just sometimes it's just holding the space and just physically being there and listening is the best thing you can do, especially as a
Yeah.
family.
I agree with you. There's a lot of times where I just want someone to hear me,
Yeah.
and we're the same. We both want to fix things. And I mean, my husband, I felt so bad for him going through it because he was my caretaker. I had a nurse come in for the first day and a half, and he fired him. Said, "Nope, I'm taking care of this." And there were days I was just grumpy as grumpy could be, and they take a little bit of a beating. But just the fact that he was there doing that, or the fact that I got phone calls from people, or heck, one story I have is um, somewhere in that journey of healing, one of my Facebook friends, I can't remember if it was a family member or just a friend, or it doesn't matter. They're all family to me anyway now. They said, "You're never going to be alone. I'm sending you a pair of socks. And every time you put them on, you'll think of that." And next thing I know, I've got socks coming in the mail from everybody. I've got boxes and boxes of socks. And you know what? It just showed the support that was out there
Yeah.
and how important that support system was. So yeah, yeah, it's very to me it was very important. So let's move into growth without toxic positivity. Yeah, I always, that word is always so odd to me, but you can be a little bit toxic. Everybody knows those overly happy people at times where it's like, but there's a lot of pressure out there to stay positive. How do we talk about growth without minimizing what someone's been going through? And can growth and grief exist at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that going back to the previous conversation about, holding, that gratitude that you're still alive, being grateful you're still alive, and that grieving for what's lost, you know, those two things can exist together because it's being human
Yeah.
and acknowledging that you can hold, you know, frustration and happiness or anger and growth and all of that simultaneously and honoring it and that it's not wrong to hold those at the same time I think what is most important is when I mentioned before about the and statement, the and
Yeah.
exercise, just acknowledging it's how you respond to the negative emotion, right? It's not dismissing it. It's not saying I had a frustrating, angry day, I really feel down or depressed or demotivated or whatever it may be, negative emotion. And I am maybe I'm experiencing these physical challenges or pain, right? Just being realistic with that. And I'm still here, and I was able to do X, Y, or Z today. Like this
Going
is
back to
what
those
I
and
have, right?
statements. Yeah.
So it's acknowledging it, it's holding both at the same time and creating space for it, and not feeling like it's something wrong with you because that's being human. And but then it's allowing yourself the space to choose a positive reaction to it. And I don't mean positive as in toxic positivity, but I mean that how do I want to respond to this? Do I want to give into it and just let it feel like it's paralyzing me, or do I want to consider, and I'm still here, and I'm still
Yeah.
taking small
Right.
steps towards something that matter, right? Maybe that thing that mattered today was I get out of bed, or I had
Yeah.
a conversation with my spouse, and just it was honest conversation about here's my frustration, here's the challenges I'm having today, and that was a win, right? And just acknowledging your journey, being realistic in it, but
Yeah.
looking for places where you still have a sense of agency,
Yeah.
right? Where you can still take those small choices, right? Because this is a life you're in a chapter right now that you didn't expect, but
You
you
got
still
that right.
get right, but you still get to participate in writing the next chapter in the story. Your life's not over.
Right. It doesn't end
That's a
here.
huge piece of it. And just giving yourself grace each day and taking one small step at a time and just acknowledging that you're still able to write the next chapter and
Yeah.
contribute to that.
And that's really a good thing to remember too. It doesn't end. It just continues. I mean, everything just continues. I'm going to flash back to one of my favorite sitcoms, my recent ones, with Big Bang. And Raj has this girlfriend that's just afraid of people. Just she's very shy, very timid, and doesn't
Yeah.
like being around people and her self-esteem and all that. And it was all these little baby steps they were doing in a few episodes, and you watch her take off and come back. But the thing is you push forward. And some of the lines that drove me crazy, or at least one was, oh, you just got to move on. You just got to get over this. Look at all those bright things that are happening to you in your life. Well, yeah, you do have to move on and you do have to get over it, but you have to do that in your time.
Hmm.
And by taking those steps, like you're talking about, the ands, the micro, things. I mean, it was just like, it was brilliantly put out there, or writing your story. Because no matter what you do in life, you're the one creating your story. You're the author
Yeah.
of your own story. And that's really important. So, what do you think post-traumatic growth will look like down the road? And do people ever fully move on, or is it more about learning to live with it in a different way?
Yeah, I think it's learning how do I take this experience now and what who I am now and this experience I've gone through. How do I build from this? How do I take this to continue building who I want to be and what I want to be in the future, right? So it's not like leaving it behind. This is now an integral part of who you are physically, emotionally, psychologically, and your experience. So how not despite it, but because this happened and now that this has happened, how do I take that and what do I make from this? What do I build from this? And bouncing forward with post-traumatic growth. And it's acknowledging, like I said, you're writing the next chapter, you're participating in writing the next chapter, but you don't have to have everything figured out right now. It doesn't have to be a full roadmap in the beginning. It's
Yeah.
just you're taking that first next small step towards what matters most to you.
And that's so right, because it's like, I think we all just want immediate self gratification.
Yep.
And when we don't have it, we feel like something's wrong. And by letting that go and just knowing, like we said, in your own time, you know, things will happen, and just be in charge of that. So That's brilliant. Thank you for that, Tony. Yeah, so let's talk about if someone was listening to this just right now, and they're really in this really hard place. Um, what's the one thing you want them to hear?
Really, it's what you're feeling right now makes sense. These are all valid. Yeah, it's if you're feeling frustrated, lost, angry, hopeful, all of it. You're not doing anything wrong. These are all valid emotions and experiences that you're having, and they all have value, right? And you're responding to something that's a major change in your life. And because like I said before, it means that just because your life's changed, your story isn't over. You do get to participate in writing the next chapter.
Yeah.
And you have a sense of agency. Even when things happen that you had no choice in, there are always small choices available that you can make in helping to write that next chapter. And you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to have figured out all at the same one time.
Yeah.
Don't don't give in a social comparison.
Yeah,
Take
it's a
that
hard one.
first small step
Yeah.
of what matters most to you and who and what you want to be in the future, right?
Yeah.
And each day, at the end of the day, ask yourself what mattered today. What was most important to
Yeah.
me today? And that I think will help. We're all on this journey. Life is not something to be solved; it's to be experienced, and everybody's journey is different. And just respecting that journey and giving ourselves grace, and then each day, like you measure yourself. If I did things that mattered to me today, awesome. If there's
Yeah.
things that you couldn't find, you couldn't point to, tomorrow's another day to continue writing the next chapter, and you can
And
start again tomorrow.
yeah. And this rolls over into everybody's life. I mean, you don't
Absolutely.
have to be an ostomy. You don't have to be a cancer survivor. You don't have to, you can just be a person out there struggling right now who's just looking for that little relief somewhere and thinking that they're doing something wrong when really they're not. It's all the struggles we go through.
It is.
You know? Well, hey, I really appreciate this conversation with you, Tony. I mean, this isn't easy stuff to talk about at all, but it's real and it matters. Um, if you're listening and you're in the middle of it right now, just know you're not alone, okay? This is a process. It takes time, and you're allowed to figure this out as you go along. There is no rule book. There's no handbook. It's your life, and it's your journey. So I want to thank you, Tony, for sharing your knowledge with us right now. I really, really appreciate this. How do people get a hold of you if they want to have more conversations with you or hire you for what you're doing?
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Ray, for creating this space in the conversation. I think this is incredibly important conversation, and I just encourage everyone to continue reaching out to social support in your network. Continue it, with Stoma Dad or other similar resources, because that's going to be very critical in anybody's journey. We don't do this alone. For me, if people are interested in reaching out to me, you can email me at tonysmithcoaching@gmail.com.
Perfect.
And I'm happy to respond. And just really, again, really appreciate you guys having a conversation and creating the space for it, because it's something that's really important for the community.
Yeah, and thank you again. Well, hey, thanks for being here and thanks for listening. And as always, be kind to yourself. And I'll see you in the next episode. This is Stoma Dad. Bye.